We are on Wednesdays by our good friend Brent Beaird of College Sports Today and First Coast News down in Jacksonville, Florida. Brent, welcome to the program.
Trav, thanks. And I know it's a different conference, but the ACC 2019 schedule is coming up this afternoon at that would be 2:00 Eastern, but basically close to when you're on, a little bit after you're done. So folks who are ACC fans around there might want to pay attention to that this afternoon.
Yeah, and most of that schedule that you need to pay attention to is probably in the first 2 weeks when Alabama takes on Duke in Atlanta, and then A&M goes to Clemson in week 2. That's about it, right? Right, Brent?
Well, and the one I want to see too, Trav, is if they know when Florida and Miami are playing in Orlando.
Yeah.
What the thing that is going to interest me is what is going to be that Labor Day night game. I mean, could that even be Bama Duke or Florida and Miami before it's over? Now, Florida State plays Boise State here in Jacksonville, so that's well said. Particularly that first weekend is what I'm looking out for.
And who will be Miami's quarterback against the Gators? Will it be Tate Martell, transferring in from Ohio State, who apparently is going to look to somehow finagle the grad transfer route to be immediately eligible? Or is Jalen Hurts legitimately still involved with the Hurricanes? You would think, based on the news from this morning, that Tate Martell is transferring from Ohio State to Miami, that perhaps Jalen Hurts is headed to Maryland, maybe Oklahoma. Interesting stuff with this quarterback free agency, Brent.
Well, it is, and what just came out a few minutes ago is Oklahoma's backup quarterback now. They are putting some, shall we say, restrictions on him as far as transferring immediately. So which I'm not quite sure why you would do that. This is Austin Kendall. OU is blocking him from becoming immediately eligible at West Virginia as a grad transfer. So what does that mean? Does that mean he hangs around Oklahoma a little bit longer or looks for another home at this point? So yeah,
he was at Auburn a couple days ago, I believe. Austin
right.
Kendall, right?
Yeah, he has made the tour at this point. I think the two things that come over here, one, on the broad scale, is travel. We just basically going to have no restriction free agency coming up for quarterbacks sooner than later. And you mentioned the Miami situation. Look, I know they're getting good news with Martell at some point, but it still may not be to 2019. But they've got N'Kosi Perry. Now, obviously, Malik Rozier is out. But see, my thing with them is that's still going to be a rebuilding process for Manny Diaz coming in there, because it's not just the quarterback situation. They're losing a lot on the offensive line. They've got really good linebackers. They've got some of their D line going out. So, Trav, the reality for them is whoever the quarterback's going to be, I don't know if that cast around him is going to be that solid for 2019.
You know, it could be still that the possibility, as you said, if Tate Martell can't become immediately eligible as a grad transfer for 2019, you could stack it up with Jalen for 2019, Martell for 2020 and beyond, I guess.
Yeah, they could certainly do that. Yeah, absolutely. I'm just concerned with the players coming back. That regards to who the quarterback's going to be, Trav, that could still be anywhere from a 5-7 to a 7-5 program next year. Particularly, we're starting the year against the Gators in Orlando.
Yeah, when you look at Jalen right now, and a lot of rumblings, I think even out in Vegas, Maryland's the favorite to land Jalen Hurts.
Right.
Looking at OU right now, though, if that path is as clear as it looks like it is, I don't know how you say no to that if you have a committable opportunity to the Sooners.
I don't think there's any way you can you, Trav? I mean, if that path is pretty clear, I mean, with the skill position players that they have got, I don't. And again, to me, a lot of it, we know how good that offensive line was last year, and how good that group's going to be. I'm with you. I don't think you could pass that up. I mean, I could see him going to Loxley and at Maryland just because he knows him, but as far as the better of the teams, that's not even a choice, is it?
I don't think so, and for a couple of reasons, Brent. And you give me one or two if you got them too. Is first and foremost, you can win a championship.
Yes.
At Oklahoma, and I'm not talking about just a conference championship. You can compete legitimately for the national championship. You're going to a guy in Lincoln Riley who, among college coaches right now, I don't think there's a hotter entity translating to the next level. You know, whatever Nick Saban means to NFL people in terms of the players he puts out, specifically on offense. You know, Lincoln Riley's that dude right now in college football. And I understand the relationship with Locks, and, you know, it would make sense on a lot of different levels that way. You could say the same thing for Dan Enos now at Miami. But, yeah, between the opportunity to win championships and, again, how you'll be viewed by the next level in your evaluation having worked with a guy like Lincoln Riley, it seems like a pretty easy choice. Again, though, if that's a surefire opportunity it has, he could probably also, maybe not as much as was the case at Clemson this past season, but you got a guy in Spencer Rattler coming in there, a 5-star quarterback coming into Oklahoma. So if you're Jalen Hurts at the same time, you don't want to get Kelly Bryanted, you know, like what happened with Trevor Lawrence and Kelly Bryant. I mean, you don't just look anymore, do you, at the existing depth chart? You got to look at the quarterbacks that are coming in because these guys are playing earlier and earlier.
Yeah. Yeah, and they're just that good right now. And their freshman year. And again, obviously, everyone's not going to be like Trevor Lawrence, but there's no question that you've got to look at that. And look, on that offense, I mean, C.D. Lamb-Trav was only sophomore. So now, obviously, they lose a lot of them. But to me, the first thing you said was for Jalen, and this is crucial for him. Is to his credit, he improved under Dan Enos, but there's no doubt that with that Oklahoma staff, he could continue to improve in a situation like that. So, I mean, the chance to improve, along with being able to play for a championship with what they've got coming back, and again, they obviously now haven't they made a much more commitment to playing defense with the changes that they've had in their D coordinator and that Oklahoma defensive staff, which looks promising. And look, I think one of the big reasons that's happening is that Texas is lighting a fire under their rear end with the defense they played against Georgia in the Sugar Bowl, and they know that they've got to step up or they're going to be left.
Yeah. That was absolutely the case in New Orleans. Texas defense, very, very impressive. Speaking of the Georgia offense, I want you to rate the 3 coordinator hires at the following programs for me. Tennessee with Jim Chaney, Georgia promoting James Coley, and then the presumed hire of Steve Sarkisian at Alabama. How would you rate those 3 hires in order, Brent?
I would almost put Sark at 1, and then Chaney at 2, and then Coley at 3. I mean, Coley also, the thing he brings to the table is he's such a good recruiter, as he did when he was in the state of Florida before. And look, I know everybody's going crazy over Chaney, but you ask the Georgia beat writers, and they won't barely bat an eye at him leaving with that one. So as far as just calling plays, getting guys ready to go, I would kind of say Sark might be a little bit. It may not be, but a hair. But I would give him a little bit of an edge in that.
In terms of overall importance, would you have Jim Chaney at the top of that list, though? I mean, whereas I get what the Georgia people are saying, especially since, Chaney didn't work with Jake Fromm directly. Obviously, as a coordinator, he had interaction with the quarterback position, but that was Coley, I believe. But you look at this situation, I mean, for Jeremy Pruitt, this could be a tenure-defining hire, right?
No doubt.
I mean, more so than it'll impact Nick Saban and his program, or maybe Kirby and the Dogs. As far as importance, is Chaney at the top of that list?
Yeah. In that category, I don't think there's any doubt about it. To be able to bring him in, I mean, look, and Chaney is a run-first, tough-nosed, more play-action guy. I mean, Chaney can do pretty much anything, and they all can coach at different formations. But there's no doubt. I mean, and they're certainly paying him that way, aren't they, Trav? By giving him 1.5, and then that goes up over the next few years. But I'll also give them some credit, and I'll be fascinated to see how T. Martin is going to do there. That I think was another pretty important hire for them to be able to bring him in. But yeah, there's no doubt that as far as importance, Chaney's it.
This 10th assistant going on the field in 2018 really leads to some intrigue, doesn't it? When you have some staff overhauls, because of how you got more flexibility and how you use that extra spot. I mean, we've seen places like Tennessee and Georgia and Alabama employ sort of a standalone quarterback coach in the last year or so. But I guess that it opens up the possibility. If you're Nick Saban right now and you're thinking the area of my team that needs to improve the most is the defense, right?
No doubt.
You've got that. I'm not saying this is going to happen, but Saban has, in his specific instance, the potential to say, okay, well, last year we used that extra guy on offense. This year we're going to use him on defense. It changes things a lot, doesn't it?
Well, it does. There's no doubt. And look, that is where, to me, I mean, I know they're all excited over the offense coordinator, but the right now the defense is what's got to be fixed, particularly the backside of the defense with the linebackers who were in the DBs who were out of position way too much at that point. So I would agree with that.
You can't fire though. You can't fire. You can't fire the DB grad assistant. You know that, right? Because we know the DB grad assistant is the corner's grad assistant at Alabama. You can't fire that guy. Yeah,
absolutely.
But no,
not.
it will be interesting to see how different schools, including different programs like Alabama, do they stick with the structure from a year ago? Do they maybe switch it up? Is it a standalone special teams guy, and then you use that spot, an extra spot for that? It'll be interesting. How about basketball in the SEC, Brent? Boy, Tennessee, if the Vols aren't the number one team in the country, I don't know if I've seen it. And that's understanding Duke is extremely talented. Duke had some injuries, some illness impact Monday night in that overtime loss to Syracuse. But and there's good teams in the SEC. I think there's a real possibility you're going to have multiple teams heading into the SEC tournament that are sub 500 in the league, and you're going to look at their record and say, well, they're not really good. But then the reality of it is pretty good teams that are potentially going to be sub 500 in this league.
Well, there's no doubt about it. And one of them, I think, is in Tuscaloosa. That this is a big game for them tonight with Missouri, and that they're actually a 1-point favorite on the road. Missouri struggles, so that this is a game that they really need to win. And then obviously they've got Tennessee over the weekend. And listen, Trav, Tennessee is not. Tennessee was like Bama in football as far as the point spread when it was over. I mean, the Admiral Company is playing as well as anybody. I'd say another team. I know they lost last night at home. But what Kermit Davis has done for that Ole Miss team has been really impressive too. He was at Middle Tennessee, did a really good job there, and has come in and really coached that bunch up where they are very good. And you've got a Gator team near us that's lost 3 out of 4, and basically lost about 3 of those travel in the last possession. So point well taken. there are a lot of really good teams in this league, and the record's not going to back it up.
Yeah, if Alabama goes 0-2 on the road this week, there's going to be some panic among the fan base at 1-4. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But it is early. It is. And what could help Alabama over the second half of the SEC schedule, road game at Vanderbilt. And I understand, that place, you could probably roll out County High in Alabama would struggle at Memorial Gymnasium. But, Vanderbilt's struggling, obviously, right now. A road game at Texas A&M that should be winnable. A road game at South Carolina, even though the Gamecocks are somehow 3-0 in the league after a really poor non-con start. That's a winnable game. And then finally, a road game at Arkansas. So there are some, opportunities down the road, but it would certainly help morale a good bit among this fan base to get a win tonight.
I would agree with that. And they've got to cut down on their turnovers. And it's a conversation on another day about what they need to improve. So, and by the way, thanks to Twitter, FSU quarterback James Blackman in the transfer portal at this point, DeAndre Francois coming back. Boy, I tell you what, Trav, and again, this is for later, but to me, that's not real good news for Willie Taggart. He needs all the quarterbacks there he can get.
Has there been any good news for Willie Taggart at this point? Not much. His buyout. That's the best news, I think for Willie Taggart right now in Tallahassee. Hey, Brent, as always, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your patience, and as always, look forward to hearing from you and look forward to doing it again next week. Thanks, Brent.
Thanks, pal.